Құрметті ханымдар мен мырзалар, конференцияның жұмысын жалғастырамыз. Қазіргі отырысымызда біз бірнеше тақырыпта жоғары деңгейдегі шешендерді тыңдаймыз. Олар мемлекеттік қызметті қалыптастыру, дамыту және кәсібилігін арттырудың түрлі бағыттарын қамтитын сөздерімен шығады. Біздің уақытымыз шектеулі, жұмысымызды сәл кешірек бастап жатқандықтан мен біздің спикерлермен келісіп, ұзақ уақыт оларды таныстырмай, ол кісілердің өмірбаяны форумның сайтында да бар. Сіздер бұл кісілерді бәріңіз жақсы білесіздер. Сондықтан мен сөз берумен ғана шектелсем деп отырмын. Біз 12-ден 15 минут кеткенде бітіруіміз керек. Оның үстіне бізде бағдарламадан тыста сөз сөйлемдеушілер бар. Сонымен мен бірінші сөзді Қазақстан Республикасы президентінің жанындағы мемлекеттік басқару академиясының ректоры Болатбек Абдрасилов мырзаға беруім келеді.
Саламатсыздар ма, құрметті әріптестер. Бүгін шынымен де өте маңызды мәселелерді біз талқылап отырмыз. Менің бүгінгі айтатыным, көтеретін мәселелер ол мынау мемлекеттік қызметшілерді оқу барысында жаңа технологияларды осы біздің академияда жасалынып жатқан жаңа бағыт бойынша жұмыстар туралы мен осындай бүгінгі баяндамам осы мәселелерге бағытталады. Опыт ведущих стран показывает, что одним из условий успешного развития государства является формирование современной и эффективной системы государственного управления и государственной службы. В Казахстане формированию профессионального государственного аппарата всегда уделялось большое внимание. За годы независимости мы создали собственную модель государственной службы с учетом лучшего мирового опыта и наших традиций и особенностей. Однако мы живем в непростое время. Глобализация, интеграционные процессы, кризисные явления, транснациональные вызовы – все это ставит перед государством все более сложные и масштабные вызовы. В 2012 году президент Республики Казахстан Нурсултан Назарбаев объявил о принятии долгосрочной стратегии Казахстан 2050, главной целью которой является качественное повышение уровня жизни граждан, вхождение в тридцатку наиболее конкурентоспособных стран мира. Ключ к решению этой задачи находится в качественной реализации 5 институциональных реформ главы государства, о котором сегодня предыдущие спикеры уже упоминали. Одним из главных приоритетов реформы является формирование профессионального и автономного аппарата госслужбы мирового уровня, не зависящего от политического уровня. Принятый нами новый формат госслужбы основан на принципе меритократии, транспарентности, честном и добросовестном исполнении служебных обязанностей. В соответствии с новым законом о государственной службе, который был принят в конце 2015 года, в реализации 100 конкретных шагов по реализации 5 национальных реформ полностью изменяет нормативно-правовую базу функционирования госаппарата. Произошел переход на карьерную модель госслужбы. Понятно, что эффективность госаппарата определяется не только выбранной моделью, но главным образом профессионализмом госслужащих. Карьерная модель госслужбы должна сопровождаться непрерывным обучением и постоянным наращиванием потенциала госслужащих. В тандеме они позволят обеспечить четкую взаимосвязь между карьерным, личностным и интеллектуальным ростом госслужащего и повысить профессионализацию государственного аппарата. Поэтому в закон о госслужбе впервые включена отдельная глава по обучению государственных служащих. Закреплено обязательное повышение квалификации госслужащих не реже 1 раза в 3 года. В настоящее время в Казахстане выстраивается адекватная система обучения госслужащих. Академия госуправления при президенте Республики Казахстан является центральным учебным заведением. В то же время для обучения госслужащих местного уровня при акиматах функционируют региональные центры обучения госслужащих, также функционируют ведомственные институты госорганов и частные учебные центры. Мировой опыт показывает, что система обучения, так же как и программы обучения, технологии преподавания, не должны быть статичными. Они должны постоянно совершенствоваться, быть гибкими, адаптированными по отношению к предъявляемым к ним требованиям. Академия, как центральное учебное заведение, ответственно за качественное обучение наших госслужащих, постоянно ведет мониторинг международного опыта в данной сфере, а также потребностей государственных органов. При поддержке Европейского Союза реформа и модернизация госслужбы правительства Казахстана в период с 2012 по 2015 год деятельность Академии была принципиально модернизирована. Процесс обучения переориентирован на практические потребности госорганов. В основу разработки новых учебных программ закладываются компетентностные и практикоориентированные подходы. Эффективность реализации данных подходов достигается посредством активного вовлечения в учебный процесс руководства госорганов на уровне министров, вице-министров, ответственных секретарей, директоров департаментов, как на этапе формирования и согласования учебных программ, так и в качестве лекторов и тренеров. В настоящее время около 50% лекторского состава Академии – это практики государственной службы. На системной основе принимаются меры по повышению потенциала профессорско-преподавательского состава. Инновационные методики преподавания, изучение новейших теорий госуправления, передовых методологий проведения научно-исследовательских работ – это лишь часть того, чему они обучаются при содействии наших международных партнеров. За это время значительно укреплена материально-техническая и ресурсная база, наличие современного аудиторного фонда, доступа к мировым информационным базам данных, тесное взаимодействие с передовыми образовательными учреждениями дают нам возможность обучать госслужащих в соответствии с лучшими международными стандартами. Однако сегодня технологии, знания и компетенции устаревают с огромной скоростью. То, что вчера оказалось невероятным, завтра уже становится обыденностью. Поэтому на основе анализа текущей ситуации в системе обучения госслужащих Казахстана и анализа мирового опыта нами была разработана стратегия развития Академии до 2020 года. Это долгосрочный документ, в котором отображены наше видение и цели, в соответствии с которыми разрабатываются краткосрочные планы развития. Определено несколько приоритетных направлений развития Академии. Первое. Анализ показывает, что в ведущих странах мира идет процесс перехода от директивной, ситуативной модели управления по поручениям к проектно-целевой, когда ставится задача и подбираются инструменты реализации. Ежегодно увеличивается число государств, в систему госуправления которых широко внедряется гибкая методология управления проектом Agile Project Management. Проектный менеджмент стал ключевой частью системы управления этих государств и является мощным инструментом вывода национальных экономик из кризиса. С учетом мировой практики в Академии создан Центр проектного менеджмента, задачами которого является изучение и анализ возможностей внедрения в систему госуправления Казахстана принципов проектного управления, а также обучения государственных служащих. На данный момент ряд сотрудников Центра прошли обучение и сертифицированы в ведущих британских и международных центрах. На основе изучения опыта Великобритании разработан учебный модуль по основам проектного менеджмента и имплементирован в учебный процесс Академии. Также нами совместно с региональным хабом в сфере госслужбы разрабатывается проект внедрение проектного менеджмента в Госуправлении Республики Казахстан, предусматривающий внедрение трехуровневой обучающей программы для государственных служащих корпусов А и Б, а также исполнителей государственных заказов. Партнерами по формированию программы выступит САИД бизнес-школа Оксфордского университета и Агентство инфраструктуры и управления проектами Великобритании, с которыми мы имеем соответствующие договоренности. Второе. Академия обучает только 20% государственных служащих, в основном центрального уровня. Остальные 80% государственных служащих обучаются региональными центрами обучения. Здесь присутствуют наши руководители региональных центров обучения госслужащих. Все те новшества, которые разрабатываются или уже внедрены в Академии, зачастую не совсем оперативно доходят до регионов. Следует учитывать, что вся основная работа по реализации стратегических инициатив политического руководства страны проходит в основном на местах, в регионах, и их эффективная реализация зависит от уровня компетентности исполнителей. Поэтому идея создания единой системы обучения госслужащих, включающих Академию РЦО, которая была поддержана Национальной комиссией по модернизации, еще более актуализируется. Чтобы соответствовать современным требованиям, необходимо усиливать региональные центры обучения в части повышения кадрового потенциала, а также материально-технического оснащения. В разработке новых подходов к обучению мы опираемся на последние достижения в сфере обучения. В ОСР разработана модель обучения 21 века на базе исследований for Dimensional Education, The Competencies Learners Need to Succeed. Четырехмерное образование, компетенции обучающихся, необходимые для достижения успеха. Это международные исследования, направленные на выявление взаимосвязи между знаниями, компетенциями, поведением и характером. Реализация данного подхода должна осуществляться в тесном взаимодействии со службами управления персоналом государственных органов, которые в некоторой степени должны быть встроены в процесс обучения, поскольку одной из их функций является оказание помощи госслужащим, выстраивать карьерные планы, оценивать результативность их обучения и помогать в приобретении необходимых компетенций. К сожалению, на сегодня эти функции выполняются не в полной мере, поэтому Академия приступила к реализации ряда мероприятий с тем, чтобы помочь государственным органам перестроить работу своих кадровых служб с простого кадрового сопровождения на HR Development. С этой целью Академия совместно с колледжем госслужбы Сингапура приступила к организации совместного 4-этапного международного образовательного проекта по обучению госслужащих корпуса А и сотрудников служб управления персоналом современным подходом развития кадрового потенциала госслужбы. Службы управления персоналом госорганов должны быть вовлечены в процесс обучения с точки зрения активного участия в процессе оценки эффективности обучения в части оценки влияния обучения на результативность работы госслужащих и их вклада на результативность деятельности в целом государственного органа. Приходится констатировать, что сегодня в Казахстане целостной оценки эффективности обучения госслужащих не существует. Анализ показал, что классическая четырехуровневая модель оценки Киркпатрика применяется только в отдельных ее компонентах. Так, впервые первые два уровня данной модели используются в Академии для оценки ожиданий слушателей обучающих курсов и на втором этапе оценки знаний и навыков, полученных в процессе обучения. Замеры проводятся в форме онлайн-опросов, круглых столов и соцопросов. На этой основе разрабатываются учебные планы, определяются темы семинаров повышения квалификации и переподготовки госслужащих, а также их внутреннее содержание. Результаты анализа показывают высокую оценку ожиданий слушателей, примерно 83%. Два последующих уровня, которые представлены на нашем слайде, должны осуществляться службами управления персоналом государственных органов уже после завершения обучения непосредственно в процессе деятельности госслужащего. В данное время Академия работает над тем, чтобы выстроить все 4 уровня оценки, прорабатываются вопросы внедрения оценки качества обучения в государственные органы. Такая модель позволит грамотно выстраивать траекторию обучения госслужащих, их карьерный рост, ориентировать процесс на постоянное повышение потенциала госслужащих. Сейчас во многих странах ведется полемика, по каким программам должно идти обучение государственных служащих: среднесрочным, мастерским, краткосрочным, апробируются различные форматы. Мировой опыт показывает, что концентрация обучения на краткосрочных программах характерна для уже устоявшихся моделей госслужб, исторически прошедших все этапы становления. Современная специфика казахстанской госслужбы требует гибких подходов к обучению госслужащих, особенно в части развития фундаментальных знаний современных теорий государственного управления, политического анализа, менеджмента и так далее. Это говорит о необходимости дальнейшего развития мастерских программ, что подтверждается результатами социологических опросов, которые мы недавно провели с государственными органами. 85% руководителей государственных органов указывают на высокую востребованность и необходимость степенных среднесрочных программ. Также большая часть опрошенных госслужащих отметили важность приобретения фундаментальных знаний, практических навыков и компетенций в процессе обучения. Вместе с тем, опросы показали, что нам нужно параллельно более широко внедрять онлайн и дистанционное обучение, увеличивать количество специальных тематических семинаров, тренингов, развивать все форматы и виды обучения. Уважаемые коллеги, это лишь небольшой перечень первоочередных мер по дальнейшему внедрению новых подходов в деятельности Академии. К сожалению, регламент не позволяет подробно осветить все аспекты нашей деятельности. Мы уверены, что совершенствование процесса обучения в контексте карьерной модели госслужбы станет одной из базовых составляющих роста профессионализма государственных служащих Казахстана. Благодарю за внимание.
Рахмет. Now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Tatyana Teplova, Deputy Head of the Division on Governance Reviews and Partnerships of the Public Governance and Territorial Development Directorate of the OECD. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. Доброе утро, добрый день всем. I would like to thank the organizers, the Academy, the Regional Hub for Civil Service, the Ministry for inviting the OECD to be a part of this really important and timely conference. So thank you so much. Let me tell you in a couple of words what the OECD is and what we are doing with regards to building a professional and world-class civil service. Well, first of all, what is the OECD? Most of you know, but just to recap, that it's an international organization based in Paris. We have 34 member countries that believe that rule of law, democracy, and market-based economies are fundamental for achieving sustainable growth. And how to achieve this is through open dialogue, through excuse me, I shouldn't be looking at the slides in Russian. Through exchange of information and mutual learning and peer review. So, as I mentioned, we have 34 member states. Most of the Western European countries have joined at the beginning, and some of the Eastern neighbors are either in the process of joining or aspiring to become members of the OECD. But in practice, we are working more than with over 120 countries all over the world. This includes countries in Africa, in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, in Eastern Europe, so we really are driving towards becoming a global organization, and of course our partnership with Kazakhstan is an excellent example of this work. So how are we working on the issues related to civil service? The OECD, among 150 of its working parties and networks, has a really important one on public employment and management. So this is a network of senior officials from civil service ministries or centers of government that deal with human resource management issues and public employment. We work through three main types of activities. First of all is annual meetings of the network, where representatives of member countries discuss different priorities topics, be that the development of meritocracy or diversity in the public sector or senior civil service. We also conduct comparative research through surveys, through data collection, and then we engage in country-specific studies. And I actually would like to show to you that recently we've conducted a review of human resources management of Dominican Republic, which is a partner country of the OECD. And then also there is an analysis of public employment as part of the broader public governance reviews of the OECD. And in fact, in 2012, we've conducted already preliminary assessment of human resources management in Kazakhstan as part of the review of central administration that was launched 2 years ago. So this slide shows a model of the broader trends in public employment in OECD member countries. And it starts with the foundational element of meritocracy. And the basic question here is the workforce professionally managed as through fair and rule-based processes and transparent practices? And are education and necessary experience rewarded as part of this process? And here the elements to emphasize include professionalism, open recruitment, performance management, and transparency of pay. And when we are talking about transparency of pay, we also refer to the different bonus systems, to different types of compensation that go beyond the basic level of pay in the public sector. Then the next level deals with the issues related to what we call at the OECD strategic agility. And the main question here is, do we have the right people with the right skills at the right time and in the right places? So, and are there systems in the public service that actually enable this flexibility and mobility of public servants to ensure that indeed there is that agility and responsiveness to government priorities? And finally, kind of the ultimate level, and this is where most of our countries aspiring to get to, is an innovative public service. What does it mean? It actually combines both the merit-based principles plus the strategic agility, but requires more than that. So, and the question is to what extent the workforce has the capabilities to drive innovation and to really contribute to the results of the public sector. And here some of the elements that should be emphasized include the ability to network, the extent to which public service creates a learning culture, and the culture that allows for some risk-taking, and to what extent there is a promotion of knowledge sharing and transfer. An important component of what we call a world-class civil service is independence and neutrality. So, but what do we mean by that? When we talk about neutrality, it can be broadly defined as non-partisanship in public administration. And the basic idea behind this is that it should serve as a precondition that all of the citizens should receive the same level of service in a fair and equitable manner, irrespective of their political affiliation. So this is the fundamental principle. And principle of neutrality is linked to professionalism, merit, and competence, which in turn may lead to justice and continuity, ultimately contributing to trust in government and in service delivery, as, which is really one of the fundamental outcomes of the public service, as was also mentioned by a presenter from Canada. At the same time, as the public service is never totally apolitical, in the end it is a creation of the political environment. So one of the biggest challenges for most countries, including OECD countries, is to balance independence and responsiveness. And responsiveness is needed to ensure that civil servants are there to respond to the priorities of the government of the day that have been elected by citizens. And here the balance is between fair and non-politically partisan service delivery to citizens versus responsiveness to the priorities of the government of the day. And one could say that an appropriate balance is found when the behavior of civil servants, of public servants, contributes to supporting the legitimacy of the government of the day. So how does this principle actually get operationalized in the context of OECD countries? What you see on this slide, and this is based on a recent study that we have conducted a couple of years ago, that, and there are 11 OECD member countries that are included here, that in a number of countries, the principle of political neutrality is entrenched in the constitution and in the legal framework. For example, when we are looking at Italy or Korea, these countries include this principle as part of the constitutions. But majority of the participating countries use the administrative law as the kind of limiting mechanism to the political activities of public servants. To balance these concepts of neutrality and responsiveness, many countries also use the turnover among senior level officials. And of course, the challenge here is, again, to balance responsiveness and continuity, because of course when you have your senior cadre of senior civil service being responsive to the government of the day, the balance that needs to be found is to preserve the continuity of institutions, of services, and of policies, again to ensure equal treatment of citizens. With a similar challenge, and to clarify the boundaries between political and administrative interface, most OECD member countries have created a distinct group of senior civil service. Again, the idea here is to ensure continuity of service delivery of the institution of the public service, and at the same time to use special accountability mechanisms to promote that responsiveness to the government of the day. And if we have time after this session, I would be happy to discuss different elements related to the management of senior civil service. And here you can see that indeed there are specific elements that are put in place by OECD member countries to manage this group as a distinct group of public service. Importantly, both for the senior levels and for the broader public sector, performance assessment is a core component of career-based management. And what you can see on the chart at the bottom of the slide, that in fact in a greater number of OECD countries, performance assessment is used as kind of as a tool for career development, and it actually matters more than the number of years of experience. So this is just maybe an interesting fact for Kazakhstan to consider. And I guess the last element that I'd like to highlight with regards to developing a world-class civil service is diversity. And what you can see on this slide that in most OECD member countries, if we are looking at simple division between men and women, not also looking at different backgrounds, what you can see that in most countries women represent over 50%. But when it comes to the senior levels of public service, this figure only is at about 30% these days. So this is an important challenge for OECD member countries, and we look forward to working with Kazakhstan to understand what's the situation here. And I guess the last slide on my side is to talk about the next steps. We are updating the strategic human resources management data in 2016. There has been a survey conducted for the member countries, and we will be working with Kazakhstan in doing the survey this year as well. And additional data will be collected on the elements related to compensation and to the composition of the public sector. On this point, I'd like to thank you for your attention and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tatiana. And I would like to give the floor to Mr. Leo Smits, Chief Executive Officer of the Dutch Institute for Public Administration. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor for me to be here in Astana and to speak about the development of the civil service. My institute, you could pronounce it public or PBLQ, is the result of the combination of two organizations. Both they founded by the Dutch government, but the Institute for Public Administration was privatized in 1992, and ever since it is not subsidized or supported by government, but still working for government, and it has to earn its money by sending invoices for all the work that is done for government. That is a bit of another construction than we see in other countries. For that reason, it seemed to me interesting to tell you about the construction of the Institute of Public Administration in the Netherlands. What I did was look at the 5 reforms that the head of state of Kazakhstan has announced, and I have compared them with the situation in the Netherlands, and I'll tell you a little bit about the results of that. As I told you, the organization that I am leading is composed of 2 divisions. The first one was the Institute for Public Administration, and the second one is combined with it in 2009, and that is an institute that is focused on ICT, large projects, most of the time ICT, and then auditing, reviewing, and all kind of activities, consulting also, educating, especially on ICT. And when I look at the first reform, I see that it is focused on a modern, professional, and independent state apparatus. And that is exactly what our institute is doing, because for many centuries it has been, to say it in a simple way, it has been possible to govern a country with 3 important instruments. The first one is legislation, the second one is money, and the third one is people. But since the 80s of the last century, that is no longer the case. The introduction of ICT is so extremely influential on what government is doing that there are hardly any activities of government where ICT is not involved. And for that reason, I combined these 2 organizations and brought in ICT. I can tell you that the Dutch government has decided that all services and all communication between people, the citizens in the country, that all communication between them and government must be digital. That means that when you need a new driver's license or everything with regards to tax, everything has to be a digital communication. And that is quite an endeavor, first of all, because up to now there was still a lot of paper, but a lot of applications have to be made. But on the other hand, it takes a lot of reduction in time consuming activities of citizens that they have to do to be in touch with government. Government created 13 basic administrations, and they combined them. And as the Minister of Finance of Estonia this morning also said, it is no longer allowed to government to ask any information from people in the country that they already know. And it must, so if it is in one of the 13 basic administrations, it must be combined. Well, then go to the second reform the head of state has announced, and that is aimed on the provision of the rule of law that guarantees the right of ownership. We created in the Netherlands an organization that administers very precisely and completely digitally all land, buildings, real estate. It's also a mapping agency, and it collects registers of administrative and spatial data on property and the rights involved. And this also goes for ships, aircrafts, telecom, and networks, all the networks that are underground. So not only the buildings, but also the networks underground are administered by this agency. It must be, again, this administration to the other 13 basic administrations I was telling you about. So an organization like this helps to implement the second reform, and then to the third reform, industrialization and economic growth based on diversification. We have in the Netherlands the same problem as Kazakhstan has had due to the amount of oil that is present. We had gas, and we got what's called the Dutch disease, the disease of the Netherlands, because we earned so much money out of the gas that we became a little lazy. And what we now do, we change our economy, and that again is quite a challenge for civil servants, because we have to change our economy to other sources of productivity. Now the situation is so that 30% of the growth of our GDP is caused by the use of ICT. Here again you see the important role of ICT. Then the fourth reform was the Nation United Future. Here we see in the Netherlands two very important movements. The first one is the globalization, and again ICT makes globalization possible, and the other one is regionalization. We also see a large influence of the market. More and more activities done by government are taken over by the market. And then I'm coming to the fifth reform the head of state has announced, and that is the transparent and accountable government. And here again, it's actually best possible to reach that with the use of ICT. It helps because all citizens are treated equal. It reduces the possibility of corruption. And it also reduces the possibility for people in the country to cheat. You heard this morning from Estonia that the tax is going completely digital. In the Netherlands, we even give the information that the government already has on tax to the people that have to to sign their form. It's important for civil servants to know about ICT, but also about how the ICT market works. I come after these 5 reforms to a few words about learning. And here again, we see that ICT is of great influence. It is no longer so that education is a matter of sitting in a classroom and reading a book. It's completely digital or blended in our country. To resume, I wanted to tell you that people, money and legislation is no longer enough to govern a country, and that ICT is necessary, and civil servants need to know about ICT. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, and I would like to give the floor to Mr. Joseph Schiffer, Head of the Social Policy and Statistical Science Department of DBB Academy, Germany. Bitte, Herr Schiffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you know the Netherlands or Holland, you know Germany. So I shouldn't say any more. But nevertheless, I will try to make some remarks. I have named my presentation long-term trends in Germany, 3, not 5, and in Europe, in brackets. Europe is not, I know about Europe because I spend a lot of time on projects with colleagues from Europe, and in the last 25 years, and mates experience, they talk the same stuff. Related to us both, we copied them. They don't never copy us, especially with regard to the new public management. So it goes very quick. The same comparison between Kazakhstan and Germany. It looks different, but it is not really different. For Kazakhstan, there are visions, aims, objectives stated. And for Germany, I have stated systems or branches. Yes? And these branches could and have analogous objectives or visions. But there is a very important difference. They do it for themselves. Yes, they do it for themselves. If there is something like a vision for the economical system, political elites from economical systems and from political systems try to converge on a common understanding. There is the rule of law. And in Germany, the law branch is very, very independent. They try to protect themselves before political interventions. Branched systems, autonomy, independence, and pluralism, that are concepts by which we describe Germany, the whole system. On the left side or your right side, I have listed 4 powers. Not to teach you something about legislative, executive, and judicative, but to mention a 4th power, which is in that case not the press, but the implementive. Political scientists sometimes refer to the implementive. That's public administration. And it is some kind of power. On the right side, we have so many systems, the political systems, the economic systems, society, civic society in these days, culture and religion. We try not to make some whole system. The systems stay independent. That I had to learn as a young boy in school. I was taught about pluralism when I was 15 years old, and it still holds. Who steers the system? It steers itself. Yes. In my understanding, there are three long-term trends in German public administration, starting with leadership in the 70s, new public management, we actually copied from you, and algorithmic administration. That's your e-government. Yeah? That's your e-government. I've named it another way because I'm a little bit critical about it. Actually, we should say it's not about leadership, but it's a way from supervision to leadership. Yes, from supervision. We started with supervision in the 50s. And now we try to invent leadership. What does leadership mean? Leadership means at the core, you know it all, I know. You know? Management by objectives. Management by objectives. That's a dominant philosophy of leadership in Germany right now. Right now. But be careful, it's some try to make for an efficient machine. Yes, you get the people within public administration to follow the objectives organizational elites specify. It has to be about communication and talks about how to do that job. That's a modern variant of management by objectives. Develop a challenging and attractive version together with the employees, Tie the vision to the strategy. You have heard all about it, but there are problems. What is a strategy and what is a vision? I won't define it right now, yes? You struggle yourself with it, but we have problems to develop visions. We have problems to develop visions. That has something to do with basic cognitive constraints, but we struggle with transformational leadership. Nevertheless, there have been changes in the last 14 years. Leaders behave differently in 2016 compared to 1970. New public management. It's not new anymore. Customer satisfaction. Employee satisfaction, both. Products of public service, that's the model industry. Output-oriented budgeting, the model industry. Management by objectives, it's included in this approach we started at the beginning of the 90s. Controlling to keep the system running, and staff talk. What is it about? Basically, it is about, or was about, looking at the people in public administration and outside, the clients, and trying to make public administration more efficient by taking methods and approaches from private firms. The German model is a model from the bottom to the top. public administration started by an accident. On the local level, the level of the cities, consultancies came and told them to adopt a new approach invented in Canada, in Amsterdam, in New Zealand, and they did it. And then it took 10 years to reach the level of the Länder. Länder is the federal level. And it took another 5 years to reach the level of the Bund. Public management managed itself to take over. Why? People are copying. On the local level, they are copying, and at the top level or higher levels of public administration, they look down what's good and what's bad, and try to copy the good. And the last one, your ICT. ICT, it's my algorithmic administration. I won't talk about it because Mr. Smith has told you all what we do. In my opinion, there is a little bit of a problem with it because it's a last try to make a machine. 1 minute, I follow it, to make a machine. Therefore, beware of it, yes? Two, I will succeed. What is it all about? There are 3 building blocks. It's a theory from social psychology and supported by Canadian philosopher of the man today, Paul Taggart. It's about autonomy, competence, and social affiliation, being together within and outside public administration. And there has been some progress. It's not about bureaucracy, stratification, and rulers. That's a long-term trend. The last one. Most of the steps are, in my assessment, our elements of modernity. Most of your steps, of your 100 steps, are elements of our elements of modernity. We believe more in an open, interacting system that converge on cultural reasons. That's the difference between Kazakhstan and Germany. It's all about self-organization. Did I make it in time? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schiffer. And now we have 2 more speakers, and I would like to give the floor to Colin Knox, professor of Ulster University in Northern Ireland. Please.
Thank you very much indeed for the invitation to address the conference. I feel a huge weight of responsibility on me in that we have 10 minutes between you and your lunch, and we stand between that. So, first of all, I want to thank the Academy of Public Administration under the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan for the invitation to present our work. I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Carl O'Connor from Ulster University, who has also collaborated in our training here in the Academy. One of the things that I thought I would do very quickly is just to locate some of our work within the 100 Concrete Steps initiative. As you will already have heard this morning, most of the information in this session has been about the creation of a modern and professional civil service. In fact, our work is mostly focused on the 5th column of that reform, which is about transparency and the accountability of the state, and in particular, creating a results-oriented state governance system with standardised and minimal procedures for monitoring, assessment and control. In fact, this links very nicely with the recent OECD public governance review of Kazakhstan, which identified, amongst other things, 2 particular issues in relation to the improvements of public governance in Kazakhstan. The first being to improve horizontal coordination and accountability between ministers, and secondly, and this is the one I want to focus on in my short presentation, advancing performance and accountability systems. The OECD arrived at the conclusion that the indicators appear to be too numerous, often focusing on outputs and process indicators, and that's really the focus of my short input. Some typical impediments to creating a very outward-facing government, and Dan referred to some of this in his contribution, include the fact that multi-level governance arrangements, in other words, the relationships between central, local government, regional governments, are problematic, that we have producer-driven services, in other words, services are provided in accordance with the needs of those who are delivering them rather than the needs of users. Government ministries operate in single silos, in isolated boxes. We have self-interested bureaucrats who are primarily concerned with their own career advancement. Provision tends to be very top-down in terms of its orientation, and there is a need to refocus our public services more towards what they're actually achieving. And some research in the UK actually looks at public services from the perspective of a user. So if somebody is unemployed, somebody is long-term sick, they ask what public services typically would they encounter and how effective are those services. So with the help of the UNTP Regional Hub Innovation Solution Scheme, we're doing some work that it's looking at the possibility of some international scholarship around what is described as quality of life indicators. And essentially, these indicators are an attempt to shift public services much more towards outcomes-focused, a multi-agency approach to providing better value for money. And the key question that is asked around these reforms is, how do public services impact on the quality of people's lives? That is the ultimate determinant of whether we are providing good public services. Are they impacting on the quality of people's lives? To do this, some international research literature talks about developing a range of indicators which offer a composite picture of social, economic, and environmental well-being in every area of governance. So we could do this at the level of regional oblasts, at the level of district akimats, and so on. So these indicators, given the OECD report about having far too many indicators, need to be very easily accessible, they need to be few in number, and they need to be easily collated. And in fact, a lot of the information around these quality of life indicators is already in the public sector system. They need to be sufficient in number, but to provide a balance in terms of the views offered, that they will provide a particular focus on whether public services, as I say, are improving the quality of people's lives. So these indicators can vary in terms of the type of indicators that they are. They can be quantitative data, they can be qualitative data. They should align with the national priorities for Kazakhstan. And progress towards these indicators require agencies, multiple agencies at all levels of government to operate across each of their areas responsible. Some research in the UK has listed a maximum of 45 indicators to cover things like community cohesion, community safety, economic well-being, education, health, and so on. I just give you simply an example of the indicators that are used for health: age standardized mortality, infant mortality, life expectancy at birth, etc. So these are 5 indicators that attempt to capture health as a quality of life indicator. So what are the benefits of these? One could use these indicators to benchmark across different levels of governance. It can stimulate debate and raise awareness across different regions. Why is one oblast operating better than the other? It allows you to review and justify and set local objectives. You can monitor change over time because you have benchmarked your performance, and it can enhance partnership working and joint action. So I'm not suggesting for one moment that we simply take the indicators that are appropriate in the United Kingdom and apply them in Kazakhstan, but rather that we take the concept of quality of life as a organising framework for looking at the impact of public services on people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knox. Endi bizde bir şeşen var, tағы söz söylейтін. Ол Түркияның ынтымақтастық және үйлестіру агенттігі ТИКАның başçısının орынбасары Мехмет Сүрие Еру мырза. Söz sizde.
Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to thank the government of Kazakhstan for organizing this timely forum. I also would like to express my warmest greetings to the distinguished participants, each of whom has rich experiences to share with us. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. Let me start by briefly mentioning my country's approach and activities in the area of development cooperation. Turkey has undertaken a growing engagement with the development and humanitarian field over the past decade, introducing new methodologies and practices. One such concept is that of Turkish model, which merges sincerity and generosity in the formulation of humanitarian policy. According to the figures of the Global Humanitarian Assistance Report 2014, Turkey has become the most generous country by donating the highest amount in proportion to its gross national product. Again, according to the same report, Turkey, right after the USA and the UK, has become the third most charitable nation in humanitarian assistance. The scope and the volume of Turkey's development assistance and humanitarian aid have been constantly increasing in the last 10 years. As poverty, inequality, and global financial crisis continue to be the most pressing problems of global politics, Turkey has become increasingly involved in development cooperation activities and given priority to humanitarian approach in its foreign policy. The political will of active engagement in global issues found positive responses, and Turkey's efforts has become subject of numerous praises in the international arena, particularly in terms of the speed and effectiveness of its development cooperation. We strongly believe that today's global problems can only be addressed through an international cooperation which is based on equality, sincerity, and mutual trust. International cooperation and humanitarian responses must be saved from being associated with hidden agendas. We must prevent development cooperation from being something that is approached with suspicion by the partners. Development cooperation can only be effective if it is based on trust, goodwill, and sincerity. Turkey's human-oriented attitude in crisis areas and its human-oriented and comprehensive perspective in the UN are the areas in which this sincerity and goodwill is being put into practice. In this context, we treat humanitarian and development cooperation as a natural part of our existence, rather than being a product of strategic calculation. Turkey's specific aid model has found the source of alignment between development cooperation and humanitarianism in its own culture and history. We strongly believe that any development cooperation activity or humanitarian response that do not touch human conscience and do not have a humanitarian essence cannot be effective and long-lasting. Indeed, we have a long-standing tradition of cooperation and assistance that goes back centuries. Ottoman Waqf culture, as the most explicit form of institutionalized philanthropy in our history, has been the primary basis for the provision of public services such as education, sheltering, social security, and healthcare. Ladies and gentlemen, tackling the huge development challenges from extreme poverty and rising inequality within many countries to environmental degradation and conflict is what the post-2015 agenda is all about. At this point, successful implementation of institutional reforms is of utmost importance, and it will depend on the active involvement of all countries, and we know that the support of all the partner countries in the region can be counted on. Today, improvement of public administration and institutional reforms holds an important place in the current sustainable development agenda, especially in the area of domestic resource mobilization. We look forward to continuing our cooperation on a range of areas, both with Kazakhstan and the other partner countries in the region. These include, among others, the development of public services. By sharing our experiences in the area of public administration and institutional reforms, we can show practical examples of how to make progress on the new global agenda in our countries, in the region, and around the world. Thank you very much for your attention.
Çok teşekkür Mehmet Bey. Biz sonымен бүгінгі конференцияның соңына тақап қалдық. Мен біріншіден барлық сөз сөйлеушілерді өте терең, танымдық, ақпараттық баяндамалар үшін алғыс айтқым келеді. Және сіздер тек қана өздеріңіздің тәжірибелеріңіз ғана емес, оны Қазақстанның ұлт жоспарымен байланыстырып, Қазақстанға қандай түрде оны пайдалануға болатынын атап кеттіңіздер. Сонымен қатар сіздер Қазақстанмен өздеріңіздің мемлекеттеріңізде, сіздер жұмыс жасайтын институттардың да бірге әріптес болуға әзірлігін атап кеттіңіздер. Бұл біз үшін өте маңызды. Сондықтан сіздерге шын жүректен алғыс айта отырып, мен барлық қатысушыларға бір нәрсені түсіндіргім келеді. Біз қазір үзіліс уақытына келдік. Енді өздеріңіз білесіздер, академия, министрлік бүгін кешкі асқа қатысушылардың көбісін шақырған. Сұрақ жауап, дискуссияны сол кезеңге ауыстыратын ойымыз бар. Сондықтан ол жұмыс асы болайын деп тұр. Қарсы болмасаңыздар. Себебі қазір түскі асты да уақытында ішулеріңіз керек қой сіздердің. Сол сіздердің денсаулықтарыңызды ойлай тұра, мен сіздерге келесі жылы Астана экономикалық форумының осы сессиясында кездескенге дейін деп сау болыңыздар.